Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Awakened and Alive After 40 podcast. I know I say this every time, but I probably am the most excited today for what we're about to do because we are talking to my best friend, Ellen. And she and I have such a history together and we have so many fun stories, but we have a very specific topic that we're excited to talk about today because it's something Dominique and I have wanted to touch on in an episode. And I said, I can't talk about this topic without Ellen coming on because she and I were the ones who were really having this great conversation and came to this great realization that we are going to get to later in the episode. But first, we just wanted to say, welcome, Ellen, to the podcast.
Yay,
Hello,
thank
Ellen.
you. I'm so excited. I listen to you guys all the time. Obviously, Karrie's my bestie. So, getting to chit chat with you guys about all this fun stuff, I'm
And
just pumped.
this is exciting for me too, because I remember when Karrie first brought this topic idea to me, and I was like, oh my God, yes, we absolutely need to do this. And then I found out that you are a splenic projector, which I will share more about in this time together. And it's just the perfect topic. And Karrie, what is that topic we're going to be speaking on?
We're going to be talking a little bit about the idea of bravery. But before we started that, I just wanted to give like a little background about me and Ellen as friends and how we met. So, Ellen and I both worked in public education. She was a classroom teacher, I was the speech language pathologist at the school. And so, Ellen, can you tell us just a little bit about your career story? Because I know it's still in progress, but I find it really interesting and really reassuring because you and I are experiencing sort of the same type of transformation and wanting to look for a new path in our life.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think that for me, I've always known that I didn't want to do one thing all the time. I was kind of the kid that was like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do this, I want to do this. And I changed my major 3 times in college, if that shows anything, went to 3 different schools. So, but I did settle on teaching. I've always loved kids and like teaching just comes really naturally to me. So I met Karrie when I was a public school teacher teaching kindergarten and first grade. And I was in education for 12 years until this past year. So I was a substitute, I was a classroom teacher, mostly in primary grades. Karrie and I both taught English in Spain for a couple years. Then I came back, really missed my own classroom, did that for another 5 years. But last year, I decided to take a break. I kind of knew in September it was time for a change. I didn't feel as fulfilled, as successful, um, just as in it as I should be. And I have a really strong belief that teachers need to be like fully in it to be effective. So I was like, okay, this will either be a clean break or just a short term break. But this past year, have been really leaning into learning about interior design, which is one of the majors I studied in college for 2 years, but never tried professionally. So I've been taking more classes, helping friends and family with projects, not doing it professionally right now. But it's fun to have this other thing that could be work for me. But yeah, so I'm in this transition period, and thankfully Karrie is also like we're both going through like this change of um, our professional identities, kind of. And as a teacher, it was so much part of my identity for a long time that it's been really interesting. 9 or 10 months that's not my identity anymore, and like how else am I defining myself and where else do I see myself in the world. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now in my mid 30s, which is strange but fun and also weirdly expected because I always saw myself changing. So
I do have to say, when I worked with Ellen in the schools, her classroom was always gorgeous. So we always knew she had this knack for creating good feeling spaces. And all the teachers would go into her classroom and be like, oh my God, like, give me tips. Can you help me? And she just creates this vibe in her classroom and in her own home through her. I think it's a natural ability she has through design. I don't have it, and so it's really hard for me to relate to, but whenever I'm in her place, I'm like, yes, like I just love everything in here, but I never would have known how to put any of this together.
That's so sweet. I love that. And I grew up like always loving redecorating everything. I'm like helping my parents buy furniture when I'm like 8, like I'm like, that doesn't look good. That looks good, But yeah, in the classroom, it was fun as a teacher to get to kind of like move that muscle a bit and design an entire space that's for learning, that you want it to feel a certain way. And yeah, I got a lot of positive feedback throughout the different classrooms and schools and buildings I was in. So that was a really fun crossover.
I love hearing all of this because right away, kind of my brain is percolating on your chart because I did
Yeah.
look at it ahead of time. And there's just so much in your chart that shows themes of improving, whether it be like things, places, like through your teaching, just correcting, improving so that you can experience more happiness, more joy. And that flows into teaching, right? Like that's
Hmm.
why you're teaching is to improve the minds of the children so that they can thrive and have experiences of joy in life. And so it's just really fascinating. And also, you mentioning your curiosity and maybe being full of different ideas. I resonate with that because you and I share a theme in our charts that has to do with ideas and curiosity and trying things out, testing things out. And I think that's a big part of the connection to our topic today, too, with bravery and how it just is a different term, like how we define it differently for each of us. Like my idea of bravery is going to be different from Ellen's, it's going to be different from Karrie's. And I also think that that does have a lot to do with our purpose here as well, which in the human design chart, it does show a lot about life purpose and themes that we experience. So this is going to be a great topic to chat more on.
Yeah,
Another
for sure.
interesting thing Ellen said was she wasn't feeling success in the classroom anymore as a teacher. And
Mm-hmm.
within human design for projectors, success is our key theme to know that we're on the right path. So when we feel successful, it's a sign to us that we are headed in the right direction. So that's amazing that you were already tuned into that for yourself, that that was missing for you. And so you knew it was time to pivot in a new way.
Hmm.
I'm curious with you bringing that up, Karrie, and this question being for Ellen. Um, does bitterness feel like it plays a role in your life in any way? Like feeling of bitterness when something maybe isn't aligned for you? Because that's when we talk about that emotional theme that Karrie just brought up, success is showing that we're on track, we're in alignment. Bitterness is the sign for when we are off track. And that's not for judging ourselves, but for, alerting ourselves to like, oh, wait a minute, let's maybe like reroute, re-examine things because there's maybe a little bit, and bitterness can be so many different, it can be anger, it can be jealousy, it can be so many different things. And so I'm curious what that feels like, if that feels familiar to you in
Oh
any.
yeah, for sure. I think I'm prone to that feeling, and I noticed it a lot. The whole misery loves company thing. I noticed the last couple of
Mm,
years of teaching when they got so hard. Me and my like all of my coworkers and I, just the negativity that would breed on each other. We're getting happy hour at least once a week, or we are just bitching about this, that, and the other thing with work, and like that's not gonna yield very many results. Like, sure, that's fun every once in a while because you're in it together, but I did feel it becoming just kind of this breeding ground for like more and more bitterness. And then when you go
yeah.
to work, you're thinking about this stuff, so that's not great. So yeah, I think I can be prone to that. I often seek change, and sometimes that is coming from, oh, I'm done with this. Like this is not serving me anymore. And then when I get in that mindset of making the change, I do sometimes become bitter toward the thing I'm changing from.
Mm,
Um, that I've noticed for sure. Like even moving, like I was in a house up in Seattle, and then when I decided I don't want to be in this house anymore, I want to move to an apartment, like I got bitter towards the neighborhood I was in. Anytime we would break, I was just like, oh, this house drives me crazy. I need to change. So yeah, I can
mm.
see that.
No, that's, yeah, that's fascinating. And now Karrie, you told me a great story or conversation that you and Ellen had that kind of just sparked this whole idea of having Ellen on. And I would love for you to share that.
So this happened last summer. Our friend group were all together having a girls' weekend together in Portland, Oregon. And Ellen and I were sort of behind the group, just walking along the sidewalk, chatting. And we saw a sign about a walk-in opportunity to do improv. And I was like, oh my gosh, like improv. And Ellen's like, oh, I would do improv. And I said to her, wow, you're so brave for doing improv. And she said, no, that's not brave to me because I know I'd be good at it and it wouldn't be scary to me to do it. So that's not bravery. And that just like, I got chills down my body when she said it. It was like this whole mindset shift that I had just always thought bravery was defined in one way, bravery was seen through one lens, but it just blew my mind that this idea of bravery is completely subjective because we all have different fears. We
Mm-hmm.
all have different things that would take us out of our comfort zone. And so, what is brave for me to do isn't brave for someone else. Like, for me, it would be really brave to do improv because it would be so far outside of my comfort zone. It's not part of my skill set. It's not something I have any ability toward doing improv. But for Ellen, she is a much more outgoing person. She has a stage presence. She's an Enneagram Type 7. So she just has this different type of personality than I have. And for her, it just wouldn't be brave to do it. And this is still blowing my mind trying to explain it. So, Ellen, chime in if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to when we were on that sidewalk and we saw that sign, and I mean, like, to me, I made that observation because I was like, "Oh, that looks fun." And then, it's a different it was more than the difference of this looks fun to me and not fun to you. Like when we thought about, oh, the bravery, because you used that word brave, and I was like, wait a second, that's not what I'm feeling right now when I'm thinking about going up on a stage. Like I'm not thinking this would be an incredibly brave thing for me to do, but that's what you were thinking. So yeah, it was one of those like aha moments. I remember we kind of just stopped on the sidewalk and looked at each other. We were like, oh my God, we just stumbled on something so interesting, fascinating. And we were like, we couldn't wait to tell our other girlfriends about it. I think
Yeah,
we
we're like,
waited.
we had a
We're like,
breakthrough, guys.
yeah, we had a breakthrough. We cannot wait to tell you about it. They're like, okay, you too, because Karrie and I are much more inclined to like talk about, that type of thing and just kind of go off with it. But
It is
yeah,
interesting that you said the word fun too. Like, what is fun to you
uh-huh.
isn't necessarily fun to me. And like improv sounds like complete torture to me to do it. I mean, I would love to watch it. I'd love to watch you do it.
You'd be a great audience for me.
I would.
And of course, only like two projectors would geek out about this like enlightened moment you just
And we
had.
are the only two projectors in that friend group. The rest
Oh
are
my,
generators and manifesting
Really?
generators. Yes.
Oh, I
yeah.
didn't
It's
know that.
that
Okay.
just right away. I'm like, of course, you guys were just like, oh my God, let me tell the group all about this aha moment.
And they were not as excited as we
Right.
were.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we were pumped to tell them, like, sit them down and tell them about it. They're like, okay, yeah, cool, guys. Like,
And I think it's so interesting as you talk about bravery, because I mean, we all have in our minds like bravery, okay, courage, right? But
Mhm.
Karrie, you and I know we've talked about this a few times on the podcast. Like, what is your definition of courage, bravery, success, happiness? Like, we all have our own definitions. And I think that's like what just becomes so much of that aha moment is that, we can accept each other just for how we are with our differences and find like, oh my gosh, Karrie, I love, this thing about you because your definition is something so outside of mine. And I wish I could feel that way. And you kind of get this like feeling with the other person or whoever you're in conversation with, of like gratitude to hear their experience and to hear their thoughts on it. And I think it's such a beautiful thing, Karrie, that you were just like blown away by Ellen's, experience with what bravery means to her. And I think there's parts in the chart as well in your body graph that may lead more toward you feeling braver in certain situations, or even having like spur of the moment courage or insights on things. And actually, if you want me to just jump into your chart right now, I will share the screen and I'll kind of point out a few different things since we're right on this topic of bravery.
Go for it. I'm excited to check it out and hear about like your insights because
Good.
yeah.
Okay. So, Ellen, I have your chart right here. Now, this is very overwhelming when you look at it initially. And I know you're not as familiar with human design. So
Right.
I'm not going to go crazy here. But what you're looking at, all of the shapes and lines here, think of it as like a circuit board. This is your energy. This is your energy that you were born with, that you came into the world with. And each of these shapes highlights the way your energy is used thematically in life. So you have here, I'm just going to share your defined areas because this means where it's colored in. This is your energy that you have at all times. Like this is consistent energy. So you have the ajna, which is where you have inspiration, you're processing thoughts and ideas. There's the throat, which is where we're speaking those ideas, if you want to call it manifestation. And then you have here the spleen is defined, which makes you a splenic projector. I'll explain that in a moment. Spleen is intuition in the moment, it's well-being, it's timing even. So consistent access to time, to well-being, knowing like when something is off with your health or somebody else's even. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of knowingness in the spleen for you. And then you have a defined root center, which is a pressure center. And this can be the center where we feel pressure to get things done, to take action. Okay, so with these four centers defined, this is again constant access. You and I have the 1156 here, which is a channel. This is a major theme in your life. It's curiosity. It's all about curiosity. The 11 is all about ideas. You have big ideas, so many ideas. Like sometimes it can be overwhelming. And the 56 is kind of a storyteller of those. So you're sharing ideas. But we've mentioned a couple times that you're a projector. As a projector, in order for us to properly use energy, which again, this is your circuit board here, right?
Mhm.
And it's precious energy. In order for you to use it properly, it's ideal for you to be recognized and invited to share your ideas. So projectors, they make their presence in the world through their actions, through their guidance, through their support, when others recognize that they have something precious to share. They have some juicy information that, the other person or group or whoever want to know about because they recognize that you've got something good and they invite it. And that's when you shine, when you're speaking your mind. The ajna is mind, throat, speaking. So you're here to speak your mind. You're here to speak about all the ideas and stories and thoughts that you have and curiosities. And how does that resonate right now?
Oh yeah, majorly. I mean, I everything you're saying about like curiosity being
Mm-hmm.
a huge driver in my I mean like
Mm-hmm.
in my life it for sure is. I'm constantly like seeking not more but just
Yep.
different. I
Yep.
want to see like what else is out there, how other people live. I
Yeah.
travel all the time, I clearly change jobs. I move. I mean, I've probably moved apartments 10 times in the 12 years I've been married. Um, I'm very curious about what else is going on in the world and I love just hearing other people's explanations of things, their view on the world, and I clearly love to talk too. So like I love, having those conversations like we're having now. Um, so that resonates a lot for sure.
That's beautiful. And I know this channel very intimately because it is the only one that I have in my chart.
Okay.
And what I've come to realize is it's the channel of a seeker, but it's not necessarily about finding answers. It's just seeking because you're curious and
Yes.
you just want to learn about it. So it's not arriving at anything specific. It's just constant seeking of knowledge, of learning about others, your environment, yourself. And that's where the joy is found, and that
For
constant
sure.
seeking. So being okay with having that drive to seek and not necessarily need to arrive at an outcome. And this is where it gets even better, I think, when we look at the spleen and the root center. So you have here the channel, the 1858 channel, and this channel is all about, the 18 is all about seeing patterns that could be corrected to improve someone's life or to bring more joy, which the 58 is all about cultivating joy, building joy. And so the 1858 is kind of like a critical channel where it's like, ooh, okay, I see you're not doing this right or in the best way. Let me tell you how to do it. But again, because of being a projector and it is a projected channel, it's best to be invited to share that information, or someone could potentially take that the wrong way and shoot it down, whatever juicy information it is that you have to share. So it's simply waiting to be acknowledged, to be seen for, hey, you've got this beautiful ability. And the 18 is up here in your conscious sun, which is a big, big part of your energy that you are here to put out into the world. It's about correction to find joy in one's life, whether it's environment, with people, all of the above. And the other area that you have is the 2838. I know the 28 very well because that's my son, and it is a gate of struggle, challenge, adventure, though. I like to look at it as adventure, seeing challenges that we may face as learning opportunities and adventurous. So knowing what is worth fighting for. That's a big part
Yeah.
of that 2838. It's knowing what is worth fighting for, living for, dying for, and going after it. And
Wow.
it's beautiful energy to have that really is part of like that bravery as well. So finding the courage to fight for what you believe in. And with you having a defined spleen, with that definition making you a splenic projector, that means your inner compass, your inner knowing is going to speak to you in the moment. So, what is right for you, it's going to be a very quick in the moment. It's not going to be subtly coming on. It's not going to come and go and come and go. It's like a ping. You either respond to it right then and there or it passes you by. And
Wow.
this is where with splenic projectors, one way to really get to know your inner compass is to be aware of when something pings you. And if you recognize that you kind of sit on it or you hesitate, be okay with it, get to know that. But over time, by kind of checking in with yourself, you'll be able to catch it more in the moment instead of having that little bit of doubt that might pop up, because we're not taught about all the differences our intuition speaks to us. That's one
Yeah.
thing I love so much about human design. So I heard you say wow a couple of times. What resonated with you when I just spoke about that ping and in the moment of your knowingness?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was hard not to stop you all the time and just be like, yes, 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 yes. I feel like Karrie and I were, because she knows me so well, we couldn't stop nodding, like heavy
Yeah.
nodding on everything you were saying. Um, I mean, I think that ping, that intuition, that is really how I live my life. I've always been described as a spontaneous person.
Yeah.
Um, for all of my for all of my tendencies to be organized, to be a leader, all of those things that I do have, and like whether that's nature or nurture, like for all of that, I am not a planner. Like, I do not I can't see that far into the future for myself. Like, I am constantly just like, "What's interesting now? I don't know what I wanna do in 3 months from now, let alone 5 years. Like, what's interesting right now to me?" So that was like, "Yes, yes, yes. Ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding."
And the 57 here on the spleen, that's the gate of the now. That is
Mhm.
being present right now. The fear for that gate can be fear of the future, for thinking too far out. So
Yeah.
with the 57, it's all about the here and the now. And so as you're mentioning, the planning and things like that. And
Uh-huh.
that's a beautiful thing about the spleen, that I have come to recognize. And with people in my life who have a defined spleen, they're very, very present, or they have the ability to just hone in on present. I have an open spleen, and I am all over the place. And when
Mhm.
I mentioned earlier that the spleen is all about timing as well, there, that for me is where I'm all over the place. I'm past, present, future, and just pinging around everywhere. I lose track of time. I would not know what time it is right now if I didn't have a clock. I don't have that deep like knowingness of time, that connection, where I find that people who have a defined spleen is that they can really connect to the here and now, and not bounce around quite as much as what I just explained that I have. And there's that sense of well being that you're more connected to. There's that sense of instinct that you're more connected to because it's consistent energy. Whereas if this was white, that would be open. This would be someone who could feel it in very different ways. It can come and go, it's not consistently theirs. So I think it's such a beautiful thing to have you as a splenic projector and to hear like what that is
Yeah.
like for you. And I'm curious what I just said about time and how that maybe plays out for you. How do you feel your relationship with time is?
Yeah, it was interesting to hear your perspective of, like, bouncing around and not knowing what time it is because I feel the opposite, for real, like, not just because my chart says so, like,
Yeah.
I feel very present. I kind of for all of my adventurous tendencies to want change, like, I feel very grounded pretty much at
Mm,
all times. I feel like I know I know what time it is, I know where I am in the world, like, I'm, like, hyper aware of the present.
yeah,
So,
that's
I mean,
beautiful.
obviously, I thought that was normal, but to hear from to hear that, like, other people
It's normal for
don't,
you.
exactly. So that's
And
what's so fun
yeah,
about this stuff is, like, you see what's normal for other people, right? And it
yeah,
it all circles back. It's like the bravery thing. It's like we are not all experiencing the world in the same way, and
yeah.
so it's fun to see, like, where can I fit into that puzzle? What's unique to me that I thought was just standard issue?
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I love also about speaking to you, because you don't have really all that knowledge of human design like
Yeah.
some of the guests we've had on. And so this is pretty new to you, and I love that a lot of this resonates, and it's also like confirmation maybe in a way, like here's
Mhm.
your permission slip. Keep doing you, because you're on track. And you know what? You're not going to line up with everyone else. Neither am I, neither am Karrie. And that is
Yeah.
what is so beautiful about discovering the differences in each other.
And I'm seeing so many parallels to when Carrie and I did my Enneagram typing session, which was what, a year or 2 ago, Carrie? A while ago.
Yeah, maybe a year and a half, but I was going to
Yeah.
say the exact same thing. Like, Dominique and I always have these, like, "Oh my god" moments where we are
Yeah.
like, these 2 systems, like, when put together, can be really powerful for self-awareness, insight, like, just
Mhm.
understanding ourselves on a deeper level, and they, in our experience, almost always line up like that. So, like I
Yeah.
said, Ellen is an Enneagram 7, probably with a bit of a 6 wing, which I think is what gives you your groundedness, because 7s without that grounded sense of type 6 can feel a little bit more future focused.
Mhm.
But the type 7 in the Enneagram framework is all about joy. And that is that's their strength. It's what they bring to the world, it's what they bring out in others. And that's exactly what your human design chart shows as well. So yeah,
And
another
not to interrupt, but when I keep hearing joy, like I think you've talked about on the podcast when like years ago we all did our core values. And like that one, just like I'm looking at this list of 200 or whatever, and I was just like, joy, boom, grab it. That's the one.
Wow.
That's the number one. It took no debating in my head. The other ones, I was like, I don't know. But that one, I was like, oh, yes, joy is my purpose. Like, I want to be, yeah, sitting in
it's
joy, bringing joy. Like, that's just, so I keep hearing that word, and I'm like, I have to say
it's
this.
so funny because yeah, so Ellen and her husband and my partner and me, when we lived in Spain, we did this like core values exercise for fun where we took Brene Brown's list of core values and she says to hone it down to 10 and then cut it down to 5 and then cut it down to 2.
Hmm.
So we all did that independently and then came together and talked about it. And I so remember, and this is before I knew anything about human design or the Enneagram. And
Yeah.
Ellen's was joy, one of her top two. And I was like, that tracks because she is the type of person that really does like light up a room when she comes in and just like makes you feel so good when you're around her. I think because I'm an Enneagram type 1 and type 7 is my growth path, I just really love like type 7 energy because it feels so unobtainable to me unless I really intentionally try to cultivate that. But conversely, my type is your stress path. So when you're overly stressed, you can get like really critical and perfectionistic and
Yeah.
a little bit
But
more
like,
rigid than your natural sense.
but that's how we like connect, right? I feel like we can like, we're like, we can bond in like your type and that type being like my stressor, like is a bonding for us. And
Yeah.
then, yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
the
so
cool thing is,
fascinating.
and it's like the series I'm posting right now on Instagram, is the arrows can go both ways. So your stress path with a lot of work and intentionality can become what's called the missing piece, which is when you harness your stress path's growth or healthy characteristics.
Okay.
So, and vice versa, the growth path, when you're around people, you feel super comfortable and like you can totally be yourself and let your hair down. A lot of times we'll take on the more negative characteristics of our growth path. It can get really confusing, but in the series I'm doing now, I lay out for each type each of those characteristics for the different paths that we can all take. So just it's really interesting to view ourselves and our loved ones through these different lenses because it just like, for me at least, it cultivates such a sense of not only knowingness and just closeness, but of compassion, like understanding when Ellen's stressed, this is maybe how she'll act, or Ellen might have fear over this because of her splenic definition or whatever it may be. Like
Mm-hmm.
it, and earlier you mentioned the word puzzle, like it fitting together like a puzzle. And I've heard other human design experts say that if everyone was living like completely within their energy of their human design chart perfectly, every human would fit together perfectly like a puzzle on Earth and like everything would function like totally optimally.
How wild is
That's,
that?
yeah, I see that. Like, that's honestly, I feel like all of this, I know this information isn't new, but like it's new to me to like hear about Enneagram and human design and astrology and all these things. And some people obviously like think it's woo woo or have a negative like opinion of it, but I'm like, how fun to just get more information and how fun to just see more. And you don't have to take everything exactly at face value. You can see like how it resonates with you. And like, I don't know, it's just been so fun to see Karrie on this journey and then meeting you guys and having your podcast. And I'm like, I just think it's fun. Like, it's bringing more joy into my life because I get to see, yeah, how I fit. And I like to think that, life has purpose. So finding where you are in the world and how you interact with other people like that,
Hmm.
how can that not be a good thing?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think like what you just mentioned, Ellen, it's like, you're just curious about it. You're staying
Hmm.
open-minded, and if something doesn't resonate, then you leave it. I feel like if more of us did that, if more of us could just keep an open mindset on all of the information that comes our way, that can create so much more love and compassion around the world, with each other, within ourselves. And I love that just pure curiosity can really lead to so many other doors opening as well. And even when we look at, bravery, it's how willing are you to be curious? How willing are you to trust the process? And like for me, when I think of bravery, like I'll give an example. I always thought that my friends were insane, not insane, but brave, I'll say, for going skydiving or bungee jumping. I was like, are you kidding me? Yeah, no, no way. I am not courageous enough, brave enough, whatever it may be. And that's because of my own story that I have around bravery, jumping out of a plane or off of a bridge. But it's something that I admire about my friends, though. And part of me wishes that I could be brave enough, but I'm like, you know what? There's things that I would do they absolutely wouldn't do. And it doesn't seem like a big deal to me. But
Yeah,
this is where we just add so much flavor into our lives, right?
for sure.
Ellen has
And that's,
jumped off a bridge.
yeah. And a plane.
Oh my God. Yeah, no.
Yeah. No, that
That's
was, yeah, the physical bravery was was pretty easy for me in my 20s, I would say. But yeah, as you guys were talking, I was thinking about how, like, I think we've come to this through our conversation, Karrie, and then talking about it, this realization of like what's brave for you might not be brave for other people, but so that creates that's why we're doing different things. That's why we're not all supposed to do the same thing.
Yep.
But then I'm also thinking about how when you understand that something, another person, it's easy for them or it doesn't require bravery, maybe that can give you that little extra, okay, maybe this isn't as scary as I thought it would be. If my friend or this other person doesn't think this requires bravery, maybe I can take like one little slice of that fear away for myself. So I think that like both things can be true. It can open us up to new things that we wouldn't have tried if we didn't see that another person could do it. And it also allows us to see our own lane. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
swirling a lot of ideas
Beautiful.
about it.
I
Beautiful
think,
connection.
and like other people's energy can impact that because I was telling Dominique before you got on, Ellen, I was just telling her a little bit about how like grounding and calming your husband is,
Yes.
particularly to me, but I think to a lot of people. And he's someone who can bring bravery out in people, I think, like because he's so reassuring.
And he is like very few fears when it, like, as far as when it comes to things like adrenaline junkie type of things. Like obviously he has fears, but like in the world of bravery and what people will typically think of as brave, like he has a lot of that. He doesn't have a lot of fear. So and he doesn't, yeah, I don't know how to describe it right, but like you said, he's grounding because he's so calm. He's like calmly fearless. I don't know. He's not
Mm-hmm.
like in your face about it.
No.
And he's
And he
also
doesn't
a
even put a
splenic.
lot of pressure. Yeah, and he's a
Yeah.
splenic
Yeah.
projector as
Oh, is
well.
he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's splenic as well. And I think that's also another beautiful thing to kind of bring up is like when we can recognize how each of us as individuals is designed to know what is right for us, then there's just so much more acceptance and compassion.
Yes.
Like you knowing that you're splenic and your husband being splenic. So making decisions in the moment, like you both have that ability, in which is kind of perfect with Karrie and say like myself, I'm what's called a non-emotional and I need time, but it's not based off of what my emotions are doing day to day. Karrie is more of someone who needs time. She's not in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And she has this emotional wave that she's designed to kind of ride out. And over a day, 2 days, however long it is, then she'll know what is right for her. So, like Ellen, you making decisions in the moment is your thing. But for Karrie, that is not the best way for her to know what is right for her. So, knowing these things about each other
Yeah.
is just like, oh man, that's great. Like, okay, I know what's right for me. Now let me just give so and so a little bit more time, which Karrie and I did when I presented the idea of a podcast. Already known
Dominique
she was
knew I was
emotional
emotional.
projector.
So
I was
she
like,
knew that
yep,
my thought decision-making process needed time. She's like, "Don't answer now. I want you to think about this." And I didn't know this about myself yet. She knew
Yeah.
more about this than I did. So I was like, "Okay," because my first instinct was like, "No way. I hate my voice. Like, I don't want to do that."
yeah. And
I just wanted to quickly end with a really funny anecdote because this is way before I had ever even heard of human design. But Ellen and her husband and my partner and me have taken trips together and we've vacationed a lot together. And in particular, I just wanted to tell about when I mean, this is the theme of every trip, but it was very evident when we all four went to Hawaii together. And like we said, Ellen's a projector, her husband's a projector, and I'm a projector, and my partner is a manifesting generator. And it is without doubt, every time we travel, my partner has to be physical, exercise, get his energy out. So every morning he would get up and go for a run on the beach or go work out or go do whatever. And Ellen, her husband, and me would leisurely go get an iced coffee, sit around, have these really good conversations, play some cards. And then when my partner was done with his physical activity and getting his energy out, he would come join us. And this is like how it goes every time we travel together, that
Yep.
I end up being like the third wheel with Ellen and her husband because I don't want to exercise in the morning on vacation.
You know it's not third wheel at this point. It's
Yeah,
expected.
yeah.
It's like the three of us are gonna go do our thing. And that's so funny. Every single morning in Hawaii we did that.
that's so classic though. Manifesting generator energy. Like it is so important for them to get their energy out and to stay active. But for projectors, some projectors do require exercise and, vigorous activity. But for me, like I'm listening to you talk, oh yeah, I would have been right there with you getting coffee,
Yeah.
waking up with leisurely time. And yeah.
Where my sister's also a manifesting generator, and she would have been with my partner exercising. When I was visiting her recently, she was like, we woke up early one morning and she's like, I just have to go to the gym. Will that bother you if I just leave for a while? And I said, no, I could sleep for a couple more hours while you're at the gym.
Right? It's never a problem for me to fill a few hours in the morning with a little bit of this, a little bit of that, mostly horizontally. Come on. That's easy.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. But see, now like we're sitting here, we're laughing about it. We love those parts of our partners. We
Yeah.
like find it charming, or we just simply are okay with it because that's what makes them them.
Mhm.
Well, this conversation has been so joyful for me, which I'm trying to cultivate more of in my life. So, Ellen, thank you so much for being willing to come on here. I know you have not been on a podcast before, so it
Nope.
was maybe a little out of your comfort zone, maybe a little brave, but it was so fun chatting with you about these topics. And hopefully, everyone listening gathered some ideas about bravery that'll make you think and maybe step outside of your comfort zone a little bit more.
Absolutely. I loved chatting with you guys. Obviously, I could do this for hours and hours, but this was so fun. I just loved it. And getting to see my chart and hear from you, Dominique, was fascinating. Like I told you on purpose, I did not
Good.
look at it beforehand or research much. So getting to hear that kind of for the first time in real time was super fun.
I'm
And
so
Karrie,
happy.
love you forever. So thank you guys
Love
for
you too.
inviting me.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you for all the shares and for your beautiful insight on bravery.